Hi everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder why some words just feel right, like they perfectly capture the sound or feel of what they describe, while others just seem random? Well, buckle up, because we're diving into the fascinating world of word iconicity and how our brains connect sounds with meanings. For a long time, scientists thought that the link between a word's sound and its meaning was pretty much a coin flip. Like, why does glass sound like glass? It doesn't, right? But then you hear words like roar, and it just sounds like a powerful animal noise. This is something called iconicity, where a word's form, its sound or shape, actually seems to resemble its meaning. And it turns out, this isn't just a neat trick, it is a big deal in how we learn, understand, and even speak. So, this new study took on a huge task. They wanted to get a really good big picture of iconicity in Italian. Imagine having over 11,000 Italian words and asking tons of people to rate each one on how much its sound matches its meaning. That is exactly what they did. They got almost 800 native Italian speakers to be the judges. They were asked to think about words and rate them on a scale from very arbitrary to very iconic. Think of it like this. If a word just felt completely random, it would get a low score like a 1. But if it sounded exactly like what it meant, like an onomatopoeia, think bang, or meow, it would get a high score like a 7. They even told people to say the words out loud to really focus on the sound. Now, what did they find? First off, the ratings were pretty consistent. This means people generally agreed on which words felt more or less iconic. This is important because it tells us they're likely measuring a real thing. Not just random opinions, they also found that these iconicity scores lined up with other interesting things about words, like how common they are or how emotional they make us feel. To check if their results were comparable to other studies, they compared their Italian findings with iconicity ratings from English words and also a smaller set of Italian words. They found good connections, showing that their new big data set of Italian iconicity was in the same ballpark as what others had found. This suggests that while cultural differences might exist, there is a common thread in how we perceive sound-meaning connections across languages. They looked at different types of words, like nouns, verbs, and adjectives, and guess what? Some word types were naturally more iconic than others. Interjections like wow or ouch, and words that sound like the thing they describe, like tick for a clock sound, were the most iconic. Verbs and adjectives also tended to be more iconic than nouns and function words. This makes sense because verbs often describe actions or sounds, and adjectives describe qualities that can be quite sensory. They also found some cool connections between iconicity and other word features based on past research. More iconic words seem to be a little less positive sounding, a bit more exciting or arousing, less concrete, meaning they might describe abstract ideas more than physical objects, and just generally less frequent in everyday language. It is like the most descriptive. Evocative words, the ones that really grab your attention, are often the ones that sound like what they mean. But here is where it gets really interesting. Just knowing a word is iconic doesn't tell us why. What is it about the sound or letters that makes us feel that connection? So the researchers dug deeper. They used computer models to see if they could predict a word's iconicity score, just by looking at its letters and how words are used together in language, which tells us about their meaning. And they found that the best way to predict how iconic a word would feel was by combining two things: the word's actual form, its letters and spelling patterns, and its meaning based on how it is used in lots of text. So it is not just one or the other. It is a blend of how the word looks or sounds and what it means based on its context. However, when they looked at whether words with similar iconicity scores also had similar forms or meanings, they found something surprising. Words that had similar levels of iconicity weren't necessarily super similar to each other in their spelling or their general meaning. This suggests that there isn't just one single way to be iconic. Different words might hit that iconic sweet spot through different combinations of sound patterns, meaning connections, or even the emotional vibe they give off. So, what does all of this mean? Well, it reinforces the idea that language isn't entirely arbitrary. There is a subtle but important way that the sounds and structure of words can connect to their meanings, making them feel more evocative or right. This iconicity seems to be shaped by both the word itself, its surface features, and its meaning as understood through language use. It is like our brains are constantly, subtly picking up on these sound meaning bridges. This has big implications for language learning. It might mean that more iconic words are easier to learn because the sound gives you a clue about the meaning. It could also explain why certain sounds and word structures are really common across different languages when describing similar concepts, like smallness or movement. This study, by providing such a massive dataset for Italian, is a fantastic resource for researchers. It allows for more detailed investigations into how these iconic connections work, and if they're universal or specific to certain languages or even cultures. For example, while they found some commonalities with English and Spanish, there were subtle differences, suggesting that the way a language evolves and how its speakers use it can shape which words feel more connected between form and meaning. Think about it for a second. If a word sounds like the action it describes, it probably makes that action feel more vivid in your mind. This is how we get words that feel crunchy when they describe something crisp, or slimy for something that feels wet and gooey. These aren't just random sounds, they're curated by our brains and language history to be more descriptive. One limitation, however, is that while these ratings tell us how iconic words feel, they don't always tell us the exact reason why. Is it a specific letter, a combination of sounds, or something about the overall rhythm of the word? The study acknowledges this and proposes that future research can build on these norms to explore those finer details. Ultimately, this research reminds us that language is a dynamic, living thing constantly shaped by our need to connect with the world around us. Iconicity is a beautiful example of how our minds find patterns and make connections, even in something as abstract as words. It shows that our language is not just a code, but a rich tapestry woven with sounds, meanings, and the subtle magic of resemblance. So next time you hear a word that just feels right, a word that sounds exactly like what it means, give a little nod to iconicity. It's a powerful, often unconscious, force shaping how we understand and use language. What do you think? Do you have any favorite iconic words in English or Italian? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into linguistics and cognition, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more mind-bending science, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.